بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم أفلا ينظرون إلى الإبل كيف خلقت وإلى السماء كيف رفعت وإلى الجبال كيف نصبت وإلى الأرض كيف سطحت.
From Surah Al-Waqiah, we are told to think and ponder upon God's creation and study the intricate science behind its beauty.
According to a report by the Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew, in the United Kingdom, there are about 391,000 species of vascular plants currently known to science. About 369,000 species, or 94%, are flowering plants. All plants are created differently in different physical conditions for them to adapt to the place where they grow in order to thrive. Hydrophytes are aquatic plants that are especially suited for living in aquatic environments. In order for them to survive, a hydrophyte, also known as an aquatic microphyte, must either be completely submerged in water or in some cases be allowed to float on the surface of the water. The mechanical and vascular tissue of many hydrophytes is reduced and supports them. They often have large intercellular air spaces in their stems, roots, and leaves to overcome the difficulty of obtaining gases from the water. Hydrophytes that are partially submerged have floating leaves with stomata through which gases can be exchanged as in land plants. However, to prevent the leaves from being flooded by water, the petioles may be very long to easily adjust to changes in water level. The general characteristics of hydrophytes are including water retention, flat leaves, feathery roots, and air sacs. Plants require water to survive. It usually possesses the ability to absorb and retain water to keep the plants alive between watering cycles. Next, some aquatic plants float on the surface of water because of flat leaves. Most aquatic plants have flat leaves which act as flotation to a portion of the plants. Hydrophytes are supported by water as compared to roots and stem structures. Most hydrophytes have roots that are small and feathery. These are designed to take in oxygen from the water, and since the plant is fully submerged in water at all times, there is less need for a long and thick root structure. Many hydrophytes have air sacs or chambers that help the plant float on the surface of the water. It is important to note that some aquatic plants will float slightly submerged in the water, while others will float up on top of the surface since their leaves distribute the weight across the surface of the water. The example of hydrophytic plants is water hyacinth. Water hyacinths, or scientifically known as Eichhornia crespis, is a free-floating perennial aquatic plant, or hydrophyte, native to tropical and subtropical South America. With broad, thick, glossy, ovate leaves, water hyacinth may rise above the surface of the water as much as 1 meter or 3 feet in height. Following are the important adaptations of the water hyacinth plants. For the roots, they are feebly developed and are in the process of disappearing. Roots are mostly hairless but do possess characteristic root pockets, which closely resemble the root caps of mesophytic plants. This character provides a club that hydrophytic plants have probably evolved from mesophytic roots. The epidermis is single-layered and thin-walled. Cortex is well-developed and possesses air cavities. The mechanical tissue is mostly absent since it is supported by water buoyancy. For the stem, the epidermis is thin-walled and single-layered. Cells of the epidermis are mucilaginous. Cuticle is absent in the stem. Cortex occupies the bulk of the stem and possesses large air spaces. The air filled in these spaces helps in respiration and adds to the buoyancy of the floating plants. The cells of the cortex are always thin-walled and may even possess chloroplast if light is available. Vascular bundles are found scattered among the cortical cells. The vascular tissue is poorly differentiated into xylem and phloem. The xylem vessels are thin-walled and the phloem is represented by only a few narrow sieve tubes. Last but not least, as the leaves are the chief organs of floating, very loose tissue with large air spaces is found in the leaf blades. Such a tissue enables the leaves to float on the surface of the water. The bulbous petiole of the water hyacinth is occupied largely by air spaces and presents a striking case of the development of floating tissue. The leaf possesses a distinct epidermis, but the cuticle is always absent.
Water hyacinths have been a very prominent feature of the late near-college engines in science, and for that we have gathered few KGI members to put forward their opinions on the lake.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, today I will interview Miss Wajah binti Ahmad Zamri. She has been working in College Jenis Insan for 4 years as laboratory assistant. So, Miss Wajah, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. So, let me ask you, can you tell us a little bit of a story about the lake at the base of our college?
Okay, so I don't know more. I don't know much about KGI's lake. But what I know is that it's a good habitat for the living organisms and insects there. And from what I've heard, there will be a project related to water mill by KGI. So this project is basically about converting mustaqmal water into mutlak water, which can be used as a wudu. And there is another project by USIM, which is to provide a running track around the lake area.
This is a great project. And It's such a new info for me, maybe for KGI student.
Yeah.
So, my second question, what do you think if the lake is empty without any plant?
In my opinion, it's impossible when there is no plants in any lakes. This is because the pioneer plants will grow first on the lake area so that aquatic animals such as fish or insects or living organisms can get their food resources from the plants. So the plants or aquatic plants provide many ecological benefits and are essential in promoting diversity of aquatic systems. So in conclusion, if there is no plants, there will be no living organisms that will inhabit the area.
Yeah, I agree with you. What is the fondest memory of any student in KGI that is related to that lake?
Most of KGI students will collected samples for the laboratory experiments and research purposes. So, for example, they collected water sample from the lake water in order to test the BOD level and compare with any other types of water. And besides that, they collected frogs or worms to be tested in the experiments that are related.
Such amazing experience. And last but not least, what are your suggestions that can impress the visitor when seeing the lake?
I think, as I mentioned before, the idea of the two projects, which are water mill project and the running track, will be a good attraction for the visitors to the lake. So, for example, the water mill generators itself will attract any visitors to know more about its function. Besides, provide a beautiful scenery view for the lake. And as for running track project, it will definitely attract more runners, and students can release their stress by doing any recreational activities there. I think these two projects will be a good attraction.
This is such a great idea. I love it. So, I think that's all for today. Thank you, Ms. Wajah, for
Thank you.
spending your time with me.
Thank you for having me today.
So, that's all from me. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today I will interview Jenis Ihsan College student Nina Farhana binti Norman Shri. Nina is a level 1 Abu Bakar student and has been studying in Jenis Ihsan College for 4 years. So Nina, how are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm doing great today. How about you?
I'm doing great, thank you. Without wasting time, so my first question is, what do you think when we said about the hydrophytes?
So for me personally, I think that the name hydrophyte itself is very self-explanatory, where hydro means water and phytes mean plants. So from what I understand, hydrophytes are plants that are fully or partially submerged in water. Therefore, they have many aquatic characteristics to help them adapt living in environments where water is abundant, such as in waterlogged soil or wet environments.
Simple but easy to understand answer. The next question is, do you think that the hydrophyte species in our lake that are located at the back of the college can live in the lake longer?
Yes, I think that hydrophyte species will live long enough in the lake. As I have said earlier, they have many adaptations to live in wet environment. The abundance of hydrophytes brings many benefits to the lake water, namely aquatic microphytes, where they are known to play a significant role in competing with phytoplankton growth, stabilizing sediment at the bottom of the lake, and it also offers refuge or shelter for fishes, macroinvertebrates, and littoral zooplankton, amongst others.
That's a good info. And one final question is it good if you have a lake that full with hydrophyte species?
Yes, I think that it is best to have a lake full of hydrophyte species. So actually, this condition will lead to a balanced and stable community called climates community. In Malaysia specifically, the climates community is called the tropical rainforest. So let me explain briefly on the process that will probably take hundreds of years to complete. So this process is called colonization and succession. So the colonization and succession process starts with the pioneer stage. So the pioneer stage, submerged aquatic plants, zooplankton and phytoplankton, namely Hydrilla species and also Kabamba, that have long fibrous roots will penetrate and absorb nutrients from the soil. So these plants also act as a food to other organisms, such as pond skaters, larvae, and water bugs. The pioneer plants will gradually die and decompose, forming organic matter that settles at the bottom of the lake, making the lake shallow and more suitable for floating plants. So after the pioneer stage comes the successor stage. So this stage is conducted by the aquatic floating plants, namely Pistia and Lemna, which will gradually pile up, just like the first stage, covering the surface of the lake. This prevents light from entering, causing the submerged plants to die. So the dead plants decompose and add layers of organic matter at the bottom of the lake. The third stage is followed by the succession by amphibious plants, such as Scurpy species and Cyrus species, that will also multiply. Their roots will penetrate deep into the soil, binding them together and changing the habitat. When the emergent plant dies, their remains add on to the sediment, making the pond even shallower. So the decaying of amphibious plants caused by the decomposition of organic matter and evaporation of lake water causes the lake to be very, very shallow and the water will dry up. So lastly, this process of succession will stop when a balanced level is achieved, forming a tropical rainforest, which is the climate's community in Malaysia.
Very long description, but useful information. Nina, thanks so much for your time and the useful input. I think that's all from us. Thank you.
Such wonderful creations that Allah made for us to enjoy our life. That's all from us. Thank you.